The first sign that something was wrong came to General Thurrock at exactly 0300 hours, Vorthak Standard Time. His communication officer, Krex, ran onto the bridge of the Dominion with panic in his reptilian eyes. "General, we're receiving distress calls from slave facilities across 17 sectors." Thurrock grabbed the reports, his scaled hands shaking slightly as he read. Facility after facility was reporting the same thing. Human forces appearing out of nowhere, attacking with incredible precision, and vanishing with rescued prisoners before Vorthak defenders could respond. "This is impossible," Thurrock snarled. "Our intelligence showed only 200 human ships." "Sir, we're tracking over 3,000 vessels. They're hitting every slave market, every holding facility, every transport ship carrying prisoners. How did we miss such a massive fleet?" The truth was that the Vorthak had never encountered an enemy like humanity. Other species fought predictable battles with clear formations and traditional tactics. But humans had spent weeks using stealth ships to map every Vorthak facility, while feeding false information to enemy intelligence. At the slave market on Krolex, the attack began with a series of electromagnetic pulses that shut down all Vorthak technology in the area. The energy shields around the prison cages flickered and died. Emergency lighting failed. Communication systems went dark. Mi-Young-Han had been waiting for this moment. The instant the lights went out, she began shouting to the other human prisoners, "This is it! Everyone stay calm and follow the plan." Even in the darkness, she could hear the sound of cutting tools slicing through metal bars. Bright lights appeared as human soldiers in combat armor moved through the facility with military precision. "United Earth Forces," shouted a voice. "We're here to get you out." Colonel Sang-Woo Lee led his Special Forces team through the slave market like a surgical strike. His soldiers moved in perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly what to do. Some cut through cages to free prisoners. Others set up defensive positions to hold off Vorthak guards. Medics began treating injured captives. "Sector 1 clear," reported Sergeant Jinho Park through his communication device. 43 humans secured." "Sector 2 clear," called another voice. 67 humans rescued." The Vorthak guards tried to fight back, but they were completely overwhelmed. Human weapons tore through their armor. Human tactics confused and scattered them. Most importantly, the humans fought with a fury that the Vorthak had never seen before. This was not a battle for territory or resources. This was a rescue mission to save enslaved people. Every human soldier fought like they were saving their own family members. Mi-Young helped other prisoners move toward the evacuation points. She saw Ji Hye-nam and her daughter Subin being freed from a special holding cell where Korath had kept them. "Are you hurt?" Mi-Young asked as she helped them. "We're okay," Ji Hye replied, holding Subin tightly. "I knew you were right. I knew they would come for us." Outside the slave market, Vorthak military forces were trying to organize a counterattack. But every time they moved toward one facility, they received reports of attacks at 10 other locations. The humans were everywhere, hitting every target simultaneously. Combat medic Bin Na Choi worked frantically to treat rescued prisoners as they were brought to the evacuation ships. Many had been tortured or abused during their captivity. Others were sick from poor conditions in the slave facilities. "Get the children to Medical Bay 2, she ordered her assistants. "Adults with serious injuries go to Bay 1. Everyone else to the transport ships." The evacuation was happening faster than anyone had expected. Human forces had practiced these operations over and over until they could rescue hundreds of people in minutes rather than hours. Captain Hyun-woo Kim's ship, the Righteous Dawn, led the assault on the Vorthak fleet base at Sector Command 7. His mission was not to destroy the base, but to keep enemy forces busy while rescue operations continued elsewhere. "Taemin, target their communication array," Hyun-woo ordered. "Cut off their ability to coordinate with other bases." "Yes, sir." Weapons Officer Taemin Choi fired a precise shot that destroyed the Vorthak Command Center's main antenna. The Vorthak tried to launch their fighters, but engineer Yoon-ji Lee had modified the Righteous Dawn's weapons to specifically counter enemy technology. Her electromagnetic pulse cannons overloaded Vorthak ship systems, leaving them helpless. "Captain," reported Navigator So-Young Park, "we're getting reports from the rescue teams. Over 1,500 humans freed so far, and we're only 2 hours into the operation." But the humans were not just rescuing their own people. At facility after facility, they found aliens from dozens of other species who had also been enslaved by the Vorthak. The rescue teams freed everyone they could regardless of species. General Thurok finally managed to get a communication through to one of his facility commanders. The Vorthak officer's voice was filled with panic. "General, the humans are not fighting like any enemy we've seen before. They ignore our military bases and go straight for the slave facilities. They move too fast for us to respond." "How many humans are you facing?" Thurok demanded. "I don't know. They appear out of nowhere, free all the prisoners, and vanish before we can mount a defense. Our weapons barely slow them down." Thurok studied his tactical displays, trying to understand what was happening. Traditional military logic said the humans should attack Vorthak military strongholds first, then move on to secondary targets. Instead, they were doing the opposite, ignoring military bases and focusing entirely on rescue operations. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we're tracking human forces across 43 sectors. They're hitting every slave facility simultaneously. This is not a rescue operation. This is a complete liberation campaign." For the first time in his military career, General Thurok felt afraid. The Vorthak Empire had conquered dozens of species, but none had ever responded like this. Other races fought to defend territory or seek revenge. Humans were fighting for something much more powerful: their fundamental beliefs about right and wrong. At the Grand Market staging area, where the Vorthak had been preparing to auction thousands of enslaved beings, Commander Kyungmin Lee led the largest rescue operation of the day. Over 2,000 prisoners from dozens of species were being held in a massive facility. "Teams Alpha through Delta, secure the perimeter," she ordered. "Teams Echo through Hotel, begin prisoner evacuation. Medical teams prepare for mass casualties." The Vorthak guards at the Grand Market tried to use the prisoners as hostages, threatening to kill them if the humans did not retreat. It was a mistake that cost them everything. "Take them down," Kyungmin ordered coldly. "No mercy for slavers." Human soldiers moved through the facility like a force of nature. They had trained for weeks to deal with exactly this situation: enemy forces threatening to kill prisoners. Their response was swift, precise, and absolutely lethal. Within an hour, every guard was dead and every prisoner was free. Engineer Yoo-Jin Song monitored the battle from her command ship, watching as her specialized weapons performed exactly as designed. Vorthak technology, which had seemed so advanced, was failing against human engineering. "Status report on liberation operations," she requested. "Over 4,000 humans rescued," came the reply. "An additional 6,000 aliens from other species also freed. Vorthak slave infrastructure in 47 sectors has been completely destroyed, but the humans were not finished. Intelligence reports showed more slave facilities deeper in Vorthak space. Ships carrying prisoners were trying to escape to other parts of the galaxy." The liberation operation expanded to cover more and more territory. The Vorthak Empire was learning that when humans said slavery was forbidden, they meant it absolutely. There would be no negotiation, no compromise, no mercy for those who broke humanity's one law. By the end of the first day, General Thurok's mighty empire was in chaos. His slave trade network lay in ruins. His military forces were scattered and confused. Thousands of prisoners had been freed, and human forces showed no signs of stopping. The Vorthak had thought they were harvesting weak prey. Instead, they had awakened something terrifying: the full fury of a species that would rather die than allow slavery to exist. Mi Young-han stood on the deck of a human rescue ship, watching Krolex disappear behind them. Around her, hundreds of freed prisoners were being fed, treated by medics, and reunited with family members. "You were right," Jihai told her, still holding Subin close. "They really came for us." Mi Young nodded, but her expression was grim. "This is just the beginning. Humans don't do things halfway. They won't stop until every slave in Vorthak space is free." She was right. The liberation operation was expanding, and humanity's message to the galaxy was becoming clear: break their one law, and face the consequences. The Vorthak were about to learn that some lines should never be crossed. General Thurok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. The Vorthak fleet was arranged in perfect battle formation around their core worlds, ready to crush any human rescue attempt. His ships were bigger, faster, and more heavily armed than anything humans possessed. "General, we're intercepting more human communications," reported Intelligence Officer Krex. "They're talking about liberation fleets moving into position." Thurok examined the intercepted messages on his screen. The humans were using simple codes that Vorthak intelligence had broken weeks ago. He could see references to rescue squadrons and extraction teams preparing for operations. How many ships are we tracking? Thurok asked. Approximately 200 vessels, sir. Mostly small frigates and transports. Nothing that could threaten our main battle fleets. Thurok's reptilian features formed what passed for a smile among his species. 200 ships? Against the entire Vorthak Imperial Navy? These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Should we deploy additional forces to protect the slave facilities, General? No. Keep our main fleets in defensive positions around the core worlds. When the humans arrive for their pathetic rescue attempt, we'll destroy them completely. Then we'll raid 10 more human colonies to teach them the price of defying the Vorthak Empire. What General Thurok could not see was that the communications his intelligence officers had intercepted were false. The real human preparations were happening in dark space, far from Vorthak sensors, using quantum-encrypted channels that no alien technology could break. Captain Wansik Park floated in the command center of his stealth ship, the Silent Thunder, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship positions throughout the galaxy. His vessel was just one of 50 stealth reconnaissance ships that had been mapping Vorthak space for weeks. Status report, Wansik said to his crew. All reconnaissance teams have completed their missions, reported Navigator Dayun Kim. We have detailed scans of every Vorthak slave facility in 17 sectors. Locations, defenses, guard numbers, prison layouts, everything. What about the main fleet? Admiral Sung Ho reports all task forces are in position. 3,000 combat vessels, 500 transport ships, and over 200,000 troops. Every human government contributed forces. Wansik studied the tactical display. The real human response was not the small rescue operation that Vorthak intelligence expected. It was the largest military mobilization in human history. Ships from Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, corporate security fleets, and colonial militias had all joined together for one purpose. Sir, said Communications Officer Tae Ho Park, we're getting reports from deep cover agents inside Vorthak territory. The aliens are celebrating. They think they're about to win an easy victory against a small human rescue force. Good. Let them think that. On the research station orbiting Mars, engineer Yujin Song put the finishing touches on her latest weapon design. The electromagnetic pulse cannon looked like a standard ship-mounted energy weapon, but it had been specifically designed to disrupt Vorthak technology. Test firing in 3, 2, 1. Fire! The weapon discharged with a bright blue flash. On the target range, a captured Vorthak shield generator sparked and went dark. Perfect, Yujin said with satisfaction. Vorthak energy shields operate on a frequency that our new weapons can overload. Their own technology becomes a weakness. Her team had worked for weeks developing specialized equipment for the liberation operation, armor-piercing ammunition that could penetrate Vorthak scales, cutting tools that could slice through alien metal bars, medical supplies designed to treat torture injuries, portable translators so rescue teams could communicate with enslaved aliens from other species. But the most important development was the prison liberation pods. These small, fast ships could land next to a slave facility, load up with rescued prisoners, and escape before enemy forces could respond. Commander Kyungmin Lee watched her troops practice their final rescue drill on the training facility on Europa. Her battalion had been practicing the same mission over and over. Get in, save the prisoners, get out alive. Remember, she told her soldiers, speed is everything. The Vorthak will try to kill the prisoners rather than let them be rescued. We have to move faster than they can react. Sergeant Young Jin Ko raised his hand. Commander, what if we encounter heavy resistance? Then we go through it. These are our people in those cages. We don't leave anyone behind. The soldiers nodded grimly. They had all seen the intelligence reports showing humans being sold like animals. Everyone in the unit had volunteered for this mission, knowing how dangerous it would be. Meanwhile, deep in Vorthak space, Mi Young-han continued her quiet rebellion in the slave facility on Krolex. She had been organizing the human prisoners for weeks, preparing them for what she hoped would come. Listen carefully, she whispered to a group of humans during their daily feeding time. I've mapped out the weak points in this facility. The power generators are here, here, and here. The guard stations are here. The escape routes are here and here. Mi Young, said another prisoner, you keep talking like someone is coming to save us. But how do you know? Mi-young looked around at the scared faces of her fellow humans. Children, parents, workers, teachers, all of them stolen from their homes and sold like property. Because I know how humans think, she said quietly. We only have one law. But it's not just a rule. It's who we are. Every human in the galaxy has heard about what happened to us by now. They won't sleep, they won't rest, they won't stop until every one of us is free. But we're so far from human space. Distance doesn't matter. The Vorthak think our law makes us weak. They don't understand that it makes us absolutely determined. They broke the only rule we all agree on. Now they'll learn what happens when you threaten what humans value most. Some of the prisoners looked hopeful, but others seemed doubtful. They had been slaves for weeks, beaten down by fear and despair. Even if someone comes, said an older man, how could they get past all the Vorthak defenses? Their military is huge. Mi-young smiled. Because humans don't fight the way other species do. We don't try to prove how strong we are. We just try to win. Back on Earth, Admiral Sung-ho made final preparations for the operation. The command center was busy with activity as officers coordinated the massive fleet deployment. All task forces report ready. Admiral, said Director Jae-won Kang, every human faction has contributed forces. Even the corporations have armed their cargo ships for rescue operations. Sung-ho looked at the tactical display showing thousands of human ships spread across space, destroyers from Earth's Navy, frigates from the Mars Defense Force, armed merchants from the outer colonies, corporate security vessels, colonial militia ships, even civilian transports that had been converted to carry medical supplies and refugees. Intelligence reports? He asked. Vorthak forces remain concentrated around their military bases, reported Ha-young Kim. They're still expecting a small rescue operation. Their slave facilities have minimal security. Casualty estimates? Dr. Hee Jin-oh consulted her tablet. Heavy losses among our forces, but acceptable considering the mission importance. The bigger concern is prisoner casualties. If the Vorthak realize what's happening, they might try to kill the slaves rather than lose them. That's why we hit everywhere at once, Sung-ho said. They won't have time to react. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. Thousands of ships across dozens of star systems received his message simultaneously. Attention, all human forces. This is Admiral Sung-ho Lim. You all know why we're here. The Vorthak Empire has enslaved our people. They think this makes them strong. They think our law against slavery makes us weak. Today we show them the truth. The Admiral paused, thinking about every human family that had been torn apart. Every child sold into bondage. Every person suffering in alien chains. We don't fight for territory. We don't fight for resources. We fight for the most basic principle of human civilization, that no thinking being should be enslaved. The Vorthak chose to break our law. Now they face the consequences. Across the galaxy, human crews prepared their weapons and checked their equipment. In the slave facilities, Mi-young and other prisoners got ready for the signal they hoped would come. All units, Sung-ho continued, begin liberation operations. Bring our people home. The largest military operation in human history was about to begin. The Vorthak were still celebrating their expected easy victory over a few rescue ships. They had no idea that humanity's entire civilization was coming for them. Admiral Sung-ho Lim stood in the deepest level of Earth's unified command center, reading Dong-hyun's intelligence report for the third time. The underground facility was buried 2 kilometers beneath the surface, protected by the strongest shields humanity could build. This was where the most important decisions in human space were made. The report lay on the metal table in front of him like a bomb waiting to explode. Photos of enslaved humans, audio recordings of Vorthak nobles laughing about human weakness, video evidence of families being torn apart and sold like animals. Every page made Sung-ho's anger burn hotter. How many of our people are confirmed captured? He asked Director Jae-won Kang, who ran Colonial Defense. Jae-won's face was grim as he checked his tablet. Over 300 from New Terra. Intelligence suggests the Vorthak have hit at least 4 other outer colonies in the past month. We're looking at potentially 1,500 humans in Vorthak hands, with more being taken every day. Sung-ho closed the report and looked around the command room. Dozens of officers and officials worked at their stations, all of them knowing what this meant. News of the Vorthak slave raids had spread through human space faster than any official communication could travel. Every human colony, every ship, every settlement had heard about it within hours. What's the public reaction? Sung-ho asked. Exactly what you'd expect, replied Communications Officer Ha-young Kim. Every human government has condemned the Vorthak actions. Colonial militias are demanding permission to attack. Even the pacifist settlements on Harmony Station are asking for weapons. I've never seen humans this unified about anything. And that was the truth that the Vorthak could not understand. Humans argued about almost everything. Politics, religion, economics, territory. Human colonies fought and disagreed constantly. But there was one thing that every human agreed on completely. The law against slavery was not just a rule. It was the foundation of human civilization in space. Dr. Hyejin Oh, the military's top xenobiologist, entered the command room carrying a thick folder. She had been studying Vorthak biology and psychology for years, preparing for the day when humanity might face them in battle. "Admiral, I have the tactical analysis you requested," she said, setting the folder on the table. "The Vorthak are physically stronger than humans and have superior individual combat equipment. But they have significant weaknesses we can exploit." Seung-ho opened the folder and began reading. "Tell me about their psychology." "The Vorthak see warfare as a ritual," Hyejin explained. "They believe in individual combat prowess and showing dominance through strength. They expect their enemies to fight the same way. When they raid other species, those species either submit quickly or fight traditional battles that the Vorthak can easily win. And humans? Humans don't fight like that. We fight to win, not to prove our strength. We use teamwork, strategy, and overwhelming force to achieve our goals. The Vorthak have never faced an enemy that fights the way we do." Jaewon pulled up star charts on the main display screen. "Admiral, we've been tracking Vorthak ship movements since the raids began. They're concentrating forces near their core worlds. But they've left their slave markets and processing facilities lightly defended. They don't think we're a serious threat." Seung-ho studied the charts. Red dots marked Vorthak military bases. Yellow dots showed slave markets and holding facilities. Blue dots indicated human colonies and ships. The pattern was clear. The Vorthak were preparing for a traditional battle while leaving their real vulnerable points exposed. "They're expecting us to attack their military targets," Seung-ho said. "They think we'll try to fight their fleets in space battles." "Yes, sir. Standard military doctrine for most species." But Seung-ho was not thinking about standard military doctrine. He was thinking about the one law and what it meant to every human alive. "Jaewon, I want you to send a message to every human government, every colonial administration, every military command, and every civilian organization in human space. Use emergency channels." "What should the message say, Admiral?" Seung-ho looked at the photos of enslaved humans one more time. Children in cages, families torn apart, teachers and miners and engineers being sold like animals. "Tell them we're implementing Total Liberation Protocol." The command room fell silent. Total Liberation Protocol was a theoretical military operation that had never been used. It was designed for one specific situation: the mass enslavement of human citizens by a hostile force. Every human military officer knew about it, but none had ever expected to see it activated. "Sir," Jaewon said carefully, "that protocol requires the cooperation of every human faction. Military, civilian, corporate, colonial, everyone. Then we better get started." Over the next week, something unprecedented happened in human space. Governments that had been enemies for decades suddenly worked together. Corporate fleets that competed for trade routes joined military task forces. Colonial militias that barely had enough ships to patrol their own systems volunteered for dangerous missions far from home. Captain Wonsik Park received his orders while commanding a stealth reconnaissance ship near the Outer Rim. His mission was to map every Vorthak slave facility in a 3-sector area. Other stealth ships were doing the same thing throughout Vorthak space, creating a complete picture of where humans were being held. Engineer Yoo-jin Song worked around the clock in the military research facilities on Mars, developing new weapons and equipment specifically designed to fight Vorthak forces. Her team created armor-piercing rounds that could penetrate Vorthak scales, electromagnetic devices that disrupted their energy shields, and rescue equipment that could quickly extract prisoners from holding facilities. Commander Kyung-min Lee trained special rescue battalions that practiced one thing over and over: getting enslaved humans out of dangerous situations as quickly as possible. Her soldiers learned to move fast, hit hard, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The Vorthak intelligence services intercepted some human communications about liberation fleets and rescue Operations. General Thurok read the reports and laughed. "Look at this," he told his staff officers. "The humans are planning to send small rescue ships to save their people. How touching, how foolishly emotional." "Should we increase security at the slave facilities, General?" asked one of his subordinates. "Why? What threat could a few human ships pose to our forces? Let them come. We'll destroy their rescue fleets and capture even more slaves for the market." What General Thurok could not see was the true scale of what humanity was preparing. The liberation fleets he had intercepted communications about were not small rescue operations. They were massive combined task forces that included ships from every human faction in the galaxy. Haewon Young, a former slave who had escaped from Vorthak captivity 3 years earlier, worked as a tactical advisor to the human military. She knew Vorthak facilities from the inside and helped plan the most effective attack strategies. "They always keep the most valuable slaves in the central holding areas," she told the planning committee, "but they have weak points in their security systems. If you hit the power generators first, you can disable their shields and weapons before they can respond." "How many guards do they usually have?" asked Wonsik. "Not many at each facility. The Vorthak don't expect slave rebellions, and they certainly don't expect outside rescue attempts. Most of their military forces are concentrated at their main bases." As the human preparations continued, more intelligence came in from deep cover agents like Dong Hyun. The Vorthak were planning their grand market for the following month. They intended to auction over 5,000 enslaved beings from dozens of different species. The humans would be the featured attraction. "They're advertising it throughout the galaxy," reported Intelligence Chief Min-Ho Lee. "They're calling it the greatest slave market in centuries. Buyers are coming from hundreds of different worlds." Seung-ho looked at the latest reports from across human space. Ship counts, troop numbers, equipment inventories, volunteer registrations. The numbers were staggering. Humanity was mobilizing its entire civilization for this one mission. "How long until we're ready?" he asked Jaewon. 2 weeks, Admiral. Every human faction will be in position. And the Vorthak? Still concentrating their main forces at military bases. They have no idea what's coming. Sung-ho nodded. The Vorthak thought they understood humans. They saw the one law as a sign of weakness, proof that humans were too soft and emotional to be effective warriors. They were about to learn the difference between weakness and mercy. The storm was gathering, and when it broke, the Vorthak would discover that humans were not weak prey to be harvested. They were apex predators who had been sleeping. Intelligence Officer Dong Hyun Yoon crouched behind a pile of metal containers at the edge of the slave market on Krolex. His dark clothes helped him blend into the shadows as he watched the terrible scene in front of him. The market was huge, filled with cages and platforms where different alien species sold sentient beings like animals. Dong Hyun had been working undercover for 2 weeks to get to this place. He wore fake identification papers that said he was a trader from a distant world. His human appearance was hidden by a special device that made him look like a Calaxian merchant. It was dangerous work, but someone had to see what the Vorthak were doing with the captured humans. The smell of the market was awful. Fear, waste, and the stench of too many beings packed into small spaces. Dong Hyun had seen many terrible things in his years as an intelligence officer, but this place made his stomach turn. Hundreds of different species were chained, caged, or trapped in energy fields. All of them were for sale. But what made Dong Hyun's blood boil was seeing the humans. They were kept in a special section of the market that the Vorthak called the exotic collection. 3 large cages held over 200 humans from the New Terra mining station. Men, women, and children sat on the metal floor, their clothes dirty and torn. Many had bruises and cuts from fighting back during their capture. A large Vorthak dealer named Gorlex walked back and forth in front of the human cages, talking to potential buyers. His reptilian face showed sharp teeth when he smiled. Like all Vorthak, he was tall and muscular, with dark green scales covering his body. "These humans are special," Gorlex told a group of alien buyers. "They are weak in body but strong in mind. Perfect for work that requires thinking but not physical strength. And look how they care for each other. Such emotional creatures make excellent entertainment slaves." Dong Hyun watched as the aliens examined the humans like they were looking at livestock. Some buyers poked at the cage bars with sticks. Others asked questions about human biology and psychology. The humans inside the cages tried to stay strong, but Dong Hyun could see the fear in their eyes. A wealthy-looking Vorthak noble named Korath approached the human section. He wore expensive robes and jewelry that showed his high status in Vorthak society. Several bodyguards followed him as he examined the cages. "I want that one and the small one," Korath said, pointing at a human woman and a young girl. "They will make interesting additions to my collection." Donghyun recognized them from the new Terra security videos. The woman was Ji-hee Nam, a teacher at the colony school. The girl was her daughter Subin, only 8 years old. Donghyun watched helplessly as Gorlex opened the cage and dragged them out. "Excellent choice, Lord Korath," Gorlex said. "The female is educated and can read and write. The small one will learn quickly and provide years of service." Ji-hee held her daughter tightly as Korath's guards put chains on their hands and feet. Subin was crying, but Ji-hee whispered to her softly, trying to keep her calm. Donghyun had to force himself not to run forward and try to save them. He was just one man with a small weapon. He would only get himself killed and lose the chance to help all the prisoners. Other Vorthak buyers selected more humans throughout the day. Families were split apart. Children were taken from parents. Strong men were bought for hard labor. Women were purchased for household work or worse. The Vorthak treated it all like a normal business transaction. During a break in the selling, Donghyun heard Korath talking to other Vorthak nobles about their recent raids on human colonies. "The humans are so easy to capture," Korath laughed. "They have only one law in their entire space, one law. They are too weak and civilized to be a real threat." Another noble named Vexoth nodded. "General Thurok says human military forces are pathetic. All emotion and no real fighting ability. If they try to rescue their people, we will destroy them easily." "The best part," said a third Vorthak, "is how many humans there are on their outer colonies. Thousands of them just waiting to be harvested. We could supply slaves to half the galaxy." Donghyun recorded everything on a hidden device. This was not just a single raid. The Vorthak were planning to attack more human colonies and enslave thousands of people. They saw humanity's moral code as weakness instead of strength. General Thurok himself arrived at the market in the afternoon. He was a massive Vorthak with battle scars covering his scales. His military uniform was decorated with medals and symbols of his rank. Other Vorthak moved out of his way with fear and respect. "How goes the harvest, Gorlex?" Thurok asked the slave dealer. "Very well, General. The humans sell quickly. Other species like how obedient they become after proper training." Thurok looked at the remaining humans in their cages. "Good. My ships will raid 3 more human colonies next week. I want to gather at least 1,000 more before the Grand Market." Donghyun's blood ran cold. The Grand Market was a massive slave auction that happened once every few years. Buyers came from across the galaxy to purchase the rarest and most valuable slaves. If the Vorthak were planning to sell humans there, it would be a disaster. But then Donghyun heard something that gave him hope. In one of the human cages, a woman was talking quietly to the other prisoners. She was Mi Young-han, a former teacher from New Terra who had helped run the colony school. The Vorthak guards were not paying attention to her because they thought humans were harmless. "Listen carefully," Mi Young whispered to the others. "I've been watching the guards and learning their routines. There are weak points in this place. If we work together, we might be able to help each other when the time comes." "What time?" asked another prisoner. Mi Young looked toward the sky with determination in her eyes. "When our people come for us. And they will come. Humans never leave their own behind." Some of the other prisoners looked hopeful, but others shook their heads sadly. "How do you know anyone will come?" asked an older man. "We're too far from human space. They probably don't even know we're here." Mi Young smiled grimly. "Because I know humans. We have only one law, but we take it very seriously. The Vorthak think that makes us weak. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Donghyun wanted to tell her that she was right, that help was coming. But he had to stay hidden and gather more information. Over the next few days, he watched Mi Young organize the humans in subtle ways. She helped them stay strong, shared what little food they got, and began planning small acts of sabotage. The woman was amazing. Even as a prisoner, she was fighting back in every way she could. On his last day at the market, Donghyun saw something that filled him with rage. A group of young Vorthak nobles were testing some human slaves by making them fight each other for entertainment. The humans refused, so the Vorthak used pain devices to force them. That night, Donghyun sent an encrypted message to his superiors in human intelligence. His report included everything he had seen and heard: the locations of slave markets, the plans for more raids, the number of humans already captured, and the upcoming Grand Market. But most importantly, He sent recordings of Korath and Thurok laughing about human weakness. As Dong-hyun prepared to leave Krolex, he took one last look at the slave market. Mi-young was still there, still helping her fellow prisoners, still believing that humans would come to save them. She was right to believe. What the Vorthak did not understand was that they had not just broken a law, they had attacked the very heart of what made humans human. Every human in the galaxy would hear about this. Every human government, military force, and civilian would demand justice. The Vorthak thought they were harvesting weak prey. They had actually awakened something terrible. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Righteous Dawn, watching the stars through the main viewport. The ship moved slowly through space near the outer colonies where humans had built new homes among distant worlds. His dark eyes scanned the empty space ahead while his crew worked quietly at their stations. "Captain, we're getting close to the New Terra mining station," said Navigator So-young Park from her seat. Her fingers moved across the control panel as she checked their position. "Should arrive in about 2 hours." Hyunwoo nodded and walked to his command chair. The Righteous Dawn was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was strong and fast. More importantly, it carried good people who believed in doing the right thing. So-young had been with him for 3 years. Weapons Officer Taemin Choi sat at his station, always ready for trouble. Chief Engineer Yoon-ji Lee worked below in the engine room, keeping their ship running perfectly. "Taemin, run a weapons check," Hyunwoo ordered, "just to be safe." "Yes, sir," Taemin replied, his hands moving over the weapon controls. "All systems working fine, Captain." Hyunwoo thought about their mission as they traveled. The Righteous Dawn patrolled the outer edge of human space, where new colonies were far from Earth and sometimes faced dangers. Pirates, raiders, and hostile aliens sometimes caused trouble for the settlers who just wanted to build new lives. But there was one thing that made human space different from the rest of the galaxy. While other alien races had thousands of laws and complex rules, humans had made only one law that applied everywhere humans lived. It was simple but absolute. No sentient being could be enslaved, trafficked, or forced into bondage. This law came from humanity's dark past on Earth. Humans had once enslaved their own kind, causing terrible suffering for hundreds of years. When they finally learned how wrong slavery was, they promised never to let it happen again. When humans reached the stars and built colonies, every government agreed on this one rule. It did not matter if you were from Earth, Mars, or any human colony. The law was the same everywhere. Other alien races thought it was strange that humans only had one law. The Zolarians had over 10,000 regulations. The Morphic Union needed 3 different computers just to keep track of all their rules. But humans kept it simple. Do not enslave anyone or anything that could think and feel. Break this law, and humanity would come for you. "Captain," Yoon-ji's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "I'm picking up some strange readings on the long-range sensors. Looks like there might be trouble ahead." Hyunwoo frowned. "What kind of trouble, Yoon-ji?" "The mining station isn't responding to standard signals, and there are some energy signatures that don't match human technology." So-young looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm trying to contact New Terra Station, but I'm not getting any response. That's not normal." They always answer. A cold feeling spread through Hyunwoo's chest. The New Terra mining station had over 300 people living and working there. Families, workers, children. They had built a small but thriving community on a planet rich with valuable minerals. If something had happened to them, "Increase speed," he ordered. "Get us there as fast as possible." "Yes, sir," So-young said, her fingers flying over the controls. The ship's engines hummed louder as they accelerated. Taemin turned from his weapons station. "Captain, should I prepare for combat?" "Yes, but keep weapons powered down until we know what we're dealing with," Hyunwoo replied. "We don't want to start a fight if this is just a communication problem." But deep down he knew it was not just a communication problem. An hour later they arrived at New Terra. What they found made Hyunwoo's heart sink. The mining station's main buildings were damaged. Smoke rose from several structures. Mining. Equipment lay scattered and broken across the landing area. Worst of all, there were no people visible anywhere. "So-young, scan for life signs," Hyunwoo ordered. So Young worked at her controls for several minutes. Her face grew pale. Captain, I'm detecting very few human life signs. Maybe 20 or 30 people. There should be over 300. Where are the others? I don't know, sir. They're just gone. Hyunwoo stood up. Taiman, Yunji, come with me. So Young, keep scanning and watch for any other ships. We're going down to the station. They took a small shuttle to the planet's surface. The mining station looked even worse up close. Blast marks covered the walls. Equipment had been destroyed or stolen. But what worried Hyunwoo most was the evidence of a fight. Scorch marks from energy weapons, broken barricades, and signs that people had tried to defend themselves. Inside the main building, they found the station's security office. Most of the equipment was destroyed, but Yunji managed to get one computer working. Captain, I found something, she said, pointing at a screen. Security recordings from yesterday. The video showed the attack. Ships had arrived in the middle of the night. The ships were not human. They were larger, with a dark green color and strange designs. Aliens in combat armor had landed and moved through the station with military precision. But these aliens were not trying to destroy the station or steal equipment. They were taking people. Hyunwoo watched in horror as the aliens captured families, workers, even children. The humans fought back, but they were not soldiers. They were miners, engineers, teachers, and parents. They had no chance against trained warriors. Who are they? Taiman asked, staring at the screen. Yunji enhanced the image. The aliens were reptilian, with scales and cold eyes. They moved like experienced soldiers and used advanced weapons. Their armor bore symbols that Yunji recognized from intelligence reports. Vorthak Empire, she said quietly. These are Vorthak raiders. Hyunwoo's hands clenched into fists. The Vorthak Empire was known throughout the galaxy as a powerful and aggressive race. They conquered other worlds and took what they wanted. But this was different. This was not conquest or robbery. This was slavery. The security video continued showing how the Vorthak loaded captured humans onto their ships like cargo. Men, women, children. They took everyone they could catch. Only a few people had managed to hide until the raiders left. They broke the law, Hyunwoo said, his voice cold and hard. They broke humanity's only law. The three crew members looked at each other. They all knew what this meant. Throughout human space, there was only one crime that brought the full fury of humanity down upon the criminals. The Vorthak had just committed that crime on a massive scale. Captain, Yunji said softly, what do we do? Hyunwoo looked at the empty mining station where hundreds of innocent people had lived and worked just one day ago. He thought about the families torn apart, the children taken from their parents, the terror those people must be feeling. We send a message to command, he said. Tell them the Vorthak Empire has enslaved human citizens. Tell them it's time to enforce the law. As they returned to their ship, Hyunwoo knew that everything was about to change. The Vorthak thought they had attacked a weak human colony. They had no idea what they had just started.